It's pretty bad.
He fought a guy, Nick, that was 10 and 102. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, we get a little Sunday Fun Day fight this coming weekend, and it's a big boxing match, a YouTube boxing match, a crossover fight, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Jake Paul is going to box Tyron Woodley, and to my surprise, Jake Paul is a huge favorite in this fight.
Yeah, I've seen some odds that are as far as like minus 225 to plus 175, which is pretty insane. You know, obviously we've never seen Tyron Woodley box before, but we've also only seen Jake Paul box against either YouTubers, rappers, or Ben Askren, which, you know, we realized in hindsight that was not actually a very competitive fight. We should have known that, but we thought the competitor in Ben was going to be able to put up more of a fight. It's so interesting to me that the tide shifted on Jake Paul that quickly. One fight, he beat Ben Askren, and then everybody started favoriting him against any and all MMA fighters that wanted to cross over and come fight him. So I really am interested in this fight. I'm intrigued, and thank God it's being put on by Showtime instead of Triller this time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we don't get a 2-hour-long dance concert that breaks out in between fights, and I'm grateful for that. Now, you did say something. We've never seen Tyron Woodley box before, and that's true. But I have seen Tyron Woodley punch people unconscious before.
A lot of
people. I can't say that for Ben Askren, and I can't say that for any other opponent that Jake Paul has faced. So he's going to have some real power here to contend with. And Tyron Woodley is an explosive and dangerous fighter. If you were to ask me who's the better fundamental boxer at this juncture, I would probably say Jake Paul. I mean, I have to give the kid credit. He's been doing the sport for 4 years now. He's put a good team around him, and he's down there in Puerto Rico now. He's got a strength and conditioning coach. He's got, you know, Puerto Rico has got some incredible boxing talent. He's training with the right people. He's sparring the right people. And I think he's probably a slightly better technical, pure boxer than Tyron is right now. But Tyron has to get the nod for being the best athlete. He has to get the nod for knowing what a high-pressure title fight feels like. And he's got to get the nod for knowing how to find a knockout shot on an opponent who's being elusive. Because let's face it, the people that Jake Paul have knocked out have basically run themselves into their own knockout, run themselves into their own demise, if you will.
Yeah, everybody that fought Jake realized just how about 1 minute into the fight, or maybe a little bit earlier, that they were in way over their heads. And Jake is not the all-star boxer that maybe Jake thinks he is, but he's certainly a fighter that has put in 4 years worth of work and dedicated himself, and you can get pretty far in 4 years time. So I think this is an actual gradual step up, but it's a big step up. I think the step between
this is a jump up.
Anderson Gibb, Anderson Gibb was the guy that he beat first, I think. And to Ben Askren seemed like a big step up. It turned out to not be a big step up at all. I think Gibb actually fought a better fight than Ben Askren. But Ben Askren to Tyron Woodley is a significant jump up in skill. And, you know, you got to give Jake credit. A lot of people in boxing like to pat their records, and they like to, you know, use the term tomato can. They like to crush tomato cans on their way to becoming a legit boxer. And I would venture to say that most people that are going into their third or fourth pro fight are not fighting people that were world champions and high-level athletes in, you know, in other realms, but in striking and combat sports in general. So you got to give Jake credit when it comes to that. Obviously, the question after this fight is going to be, well, if Jake wins, we want to see him fight a boxer. But, you know, what he's doing right now is totally fine, and I think it's a fair fight when you have a guy who's only fought 2 or 3 times as a pro boxer fighting a guy who's never fought boxing but has like 20-something fights, and a lot of them being world title fights in the UFC. You know, I just feel like it's a fair fight.
I think it's a totally fair fight, and that whole narrative is just so easy to dispel. He's got to fight a quote-unquote boxer. Look at go back to Floyd Mayweather, go back to Canelo, go back to anybody. A good example is an opponent that is they're talking about fighting Jake Paul, which is Tyson Fury's younger brother, Tommy Fury. if you look at the record of his opponents, it's laughable.
Yeah.
It's something along the lines of 20 and like 300.
It's pretty bad.
He fought a guy, Nick, that was 10 and 102.
Oh my!
So don't tell me that a guy who's 10 and 102 is, because he quote unquote boxes and doesn't compete in other forms of combat sport, that's a more difficult fight than Tyron Woodley. I simply think if you're of that mindset, you just don't know combat sports and what you're talking about, because Tyron Woodley would starch that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's a guy who works a 9-to-5 job, and you have a lot of these guys in Tijuana and places like that can easily get to the States. It's close in proximity. They come up and they know the drill.
Yeah.
They hit pads once a week. They stay fresh. Other than that, they have a normal life with a family and kids, and the boxing losses pay the bills. And there's a lot, people can say what they want. There's a lot of that in boxing.
Yep.
And I commend Jake Paul for going after a guy like Tyron Woodley, because it's a difficult fight. I mean, you can go look at Tyron Woodley's highlight reels and see him knock people stupid. And Jake Paul is not to the level of a fighter as those people who got knocked out. Maybe a better boxer, but not to the level of fighters. So I think this is a huge step up. I do have to give credit to Paul, but I'm not going to back away from my prediction and saying that I still think it's too much too soon, and I have Tyron winning this fight. I think Jake's best chance is early, first, second round. If it goes much past that, the athleticism, cardio, and pressure of Tyron's going to be too much for him.
Yeah, you can call Jake Paul a lot of things, but you can't call him afraid anymore.
Yeah.
He signed the dotted line to fight Tyron Woodley. A lot of people don't want to fight Tyron Woodley. If you told him, hey, we're going to give you $1 million, but you got to go spend some time in a boxing ring getting punched by Tyron Woodley, a lot of people might not sign that line. So Jake Paul asked for this fight. He called him out. He created a story. You know, it all happened organically with the glove and the
wrap inspection,
inspection of the hands for Ben Askren. You know, you're allowed to send somebody into your opponent's
corner
camp to watch them wrap their hands. And then that's where the whole thing started. I think it's a great story. You know, it's a friend coming to get revenge for his friend that got beat up by this guy, and they call him the problem child. He's like a bully of the sport. Tyron, in my opinion, has gone up in people's mind as like a fan favorite. Yeah. After so much in this build up, because everybody always hated on Tyron Woodley because they said, oh, well, you know, he seems to be a pain in the neck for the UFC. He seems to be kind of hard to work with. Now we're getting a look at who Tyron Woodley really is. He seems like a really awesome guy. He seems super friendly. He's respective. He's very respectful of Jake Paul. He understands that he's not a boxer, but he's ready to come make some big paychecks, and he wants to test himself as a competitor. I've become a much bigger fan of Tyron Woodley during this build-up for this fight than I was ever
when he was in the UFC.
And I liked him back then. I liked his fighting style. I thought he was a really good champion, but he did seem a little bit hard to deal with, and maybe that was just the way the UFC and perception, you know, led us to believe. But I like Jake. I like Tyron Woodley. I like Jake Paul. I think this is a really fun fight. I think it's going to do pretty good numbers. And I'm glad it's on Sunday because, like you said, a weekend full of fights is really fun. When we have to put 3 or 4 screens on and watch a bunch of stuff happen on Saturday nights, it can be a little overwhelming. You kind of you watch it all, but you also watch nothing at the same time. So when we have like good UFC fights on Saturday and then Sunday we have this like circus event, it's always fun.
It's going to be fun. You know, and that's exactly why I missed Manny Pacquiao last night, because I was like, I want to watch Manny Pacquiao, but it's not against Errol Spence Jr. He ended up losing the fight, by the way, side note. But the Cuban fighter, I'm drawing a blank on his name, did a spectacular job. But anyways, you know, it's when you have those that line up, you're like, dang, these two main events are happening almost at the same time. So I love the fact that, you know, we have the Giga and Edson fight to look forward to on Saturday. And if you want to watch a real striking matchup, check that one out, and then compare and contrast Sunday evening. But Sunday's going to be a fun event, no less. I think you're 100% right. The fact that it's on Showtime makes a huge difference, and I think this fight's going to come down to how much dedication Tyron's put into this camp. I believe if Tyron has spent 3 months living the lifestyle, clean, healthy, sparring the right people, training properly, getting his cardio in, I believe he's going to win. If he's kind of looking at this like, I can kind of be 1 foot in, 1 foot out, straddle the fence, then because it's a YouTuber, that could be a costly mistake. But I believe Tyron's a true professional, and for that reason, I think, even though I wish we could have seen more footage of his training camp, but he may be keeping that from us purposefully. So I think that Tyron, I take him at his word that he's working hard, and for that reason, I think he's going to win.
Yeah, and he's been doing the Champ Camp stuff on YouTube, kind of vlogging, but he's not really giving you in-depth details about what he's doing. And he's been training with Floyd Mayweather, which I think will help. Floyd's a great mind to, just open your eyes to so many things in boxing that you don't really see, especially defensively. So I think Tyron, I see him winning this fight too. I think we might end up getting a full 8 rounds, or I'm pretty sure it's an 8-round fight. We might get the whole 8 rounds. I think after the first few rounds, both of the guys' power starts to go away, and then we'll just see a little bit of a sloppy boxing match, but a decent one. One that wouldn't feel out of place on a professional boxing card. Yeah. And I think that, Jake Paul, if he wins this, God only knows who he's fighting next. It's going to be an Anderson Silva, or it's going to be
Tommy Fury, somebody like that.
Yeah, well, it could be somebody like that. But I think if he goes with the MMA route, he's going to be fighting somebody like,
could be Silva. Yeah,
it's going to be crazy. I really don't know where we're going to go from here, but it's going to be fun. We're going to get a lot of answers on Sunday night. And like I said, I'm so glad that it's on Showtime. But one other thing I have to think about, this might be something that's never been done before in all of sport, in all of combat sport. If Tyron Woodley walks out to his song, "I'll Beat Your Ass," there is a huge chance Jake Paul, the troll that he is, walks out to Tyron Woodley's song, "I'll Beat Your Ass." And then we have the two fighters walking out to the exact same song. One of the fighters rapping the song. I feel like this could actually take place. I've said it from the beginning when Jake started singing it at one of those press conferences. Yeah. And then Tyron started singing it. I swear to God, that's my early prediction, that they both walk out to Tyron's song, "I'll Beat Your Ass."
Unprecedented situation, walking out to the same walkout song. And I think the sky is the limit for Jake Paul, as you said, if he wins this fight. Yeah. And God only knows where it's going to happen. But you pointed out something about training with Floyd Mayweather, and defensively him helping him a lot, because Floyd's a defensive genius. If Tyron is able to make Jake Paul miss, that's going to be the key to this fight, because everybody up until this point has been a stationary target for Jake Paul. Yeah. They've either stood in front of him or they've literally lunged themselves at him, which makes them very easy to hit. Now, if you don't know how exhausting throwing a heavy punch or kick that misses is, just stand by yourself in your living room and throw punches at 100% and hit air. Yeah. It's exhausting. It puts you out of place. It sets you up to get countered. And if Tyron comes out with a good defensive approach and can make Jake miss a few times, one, it's going to mentally discourage him, and two, it's going to physically exhaust him. So I think that, these rounds and these lessons, if you will, with Floyd, for lack of a better word, are going to pay dividends for Tyron. Yeah, Jake Paul hasn't missed a punch in any of his competitions, right? So it's going to feel weird for him. I'm sure he's missed in sparring when he's fighting people more competitive, but he's got a lot of yes men in his corner, and every time he fought, he couldn't throw a punch that wasn't hitting all of his opponents directly where he wanted to. So I think you're right. I think the defense is going to be a huge part of Tyron Woodley's game. But the interesting thing is, every time Jake Paul steps into the ring, he's a different fighter, completely different fighter. So while Floyd Mayweather did have a little bit of tape to watch, it wasn't a ton. And what we're going to get in this next fight is going to be a different Jake Paul than we saw against Ben Askren, and of course we saw against the YouTubers and the rappers and stuff like that. Thanks so much, guys, for checking out this video. If you've enjoyed the content, a like, comment, and subscribe is always appreciated. And if you listen to audio podcasts, check us out there as well, and let us know who wins, Tyron Woodley or Jake Paul. And until the next video, have a wonderful day. Peace.